Welcome to This Too Shall Suck podcast, a fresh perspective on grief. I'm Loryn Denise, just your average millennial out here trying to have a conversation about a taboo topic that nobody wants to talk about. It's important to know that grief doesn't just happen when you lose someone. It can happen at any moment in your life. And it doesn't have to be all bad. It can actually be a really beautiful process. And as a millennial who had to process our own grief, I knew it was important to bring a more lighthearted, fresh perspective and create a safe space to discuss a topic that is typically uneasy. As I always like to say, we like to talk about the real of grief, the whole grief, and nothing but the grief. This Too Shall Suck podcast, a fresh perspective on grief, starts now. Welcome back, welcome back, welcome back. You know what? I need to hit up Mace because I kind of feel like I need like an endorsement because I'm always singing that. Oh, for real though. High key. Don't listen. If you hear Mace on here endorsing your girl, just know that I put in the work to get it, okay? Welcome back, guys. Welcome back to another episode. If this is your first time here, welcome. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for joining on this journey of talking about grief. You know, it's important for us to talk about, and we are here to talk about it. And so on today's episode, I wanted to give space and light to the topic of a parent having a child in prison. I will say that when I was doing some research on this topic, I found a lot of articles on if a child has a parent or an incarcerated parent and the mental effects of that and what they can do and how you can support them, all of this stuff. But then when it was turned around, when I was looking for maybe some tips or some support for parents who have incarcerated children, it seemed like it was pretty scarce. And I think a lot of that is that, people don't talk about parents' feelings, because they feel like that, oh, they're adults and, they have it together. They can, they know how to hone in their feelings or they know what to do with their feelings. But if we haven't learned anything like at all about mental health and our feelings and our emotions, like, no, we don't always have it together. Like, it's just normal for us not to have it together. So, especially for a parent who has a child who is incarcerated, just the different emotions that come with that. And so I did bring on a special guest to have a conversation today. This person is super special to me, super close to me. And you guys will see who it is after we get into the break and talk about it. But there was one thing that I did find one tip. And this is from a website called prisonermoms.net. And it said that most parents feel a sense of shame, guilt, or embarrassment when they have a child who is incarcerated. And the guest that I'm going to bring on talks about that a little bit, of having them in this good environment and trying to create a space for them when they're growing up and giving them all that you can and giving them the life that you didn't have. And then they still end up in the system and, how that can affect you. Right. Because again, I think a lot of people put a lot of emphasis on if a child has an incarcerated parent, but it's not the other way around, and specifically, I'll say adult children, right? Because when they're younger and, they're in juvenile and stuff like that, but having an adult child in their 20s, 30s, 40s, however old you are, and being in prison and not being able to support them the way that you want to, not being able to hug them, not being able to I don't want to say raise a child because at that point they're adults and they can make adult decisions, but your child is your child. I don't have children right now, but I know like just that connection that you have with your child and wanting to give them the world and, them ending up in this place and you're like, God, what did I do? Like, or you're embarrassed and you don't want to tell people. And, I wanted to make sure I gave the space and light to a parent who does have a child who is in prison, who has been in and out of the jail or prison system since they were 22. And to be able to talk about those different experiences and her experiences, from the time that he got arrested, from the time that, he was in prison, from the things that he was going through in prison to the time that he's now in this transition home, and to just give her that space and time. Because, again, I think we give so much emphasis on a parent being in prison and it being a child and not the opposite. And so I'm really excited for you guys to hear this conversation with me and this guest that you will see after the break. This week's episode is sponsored by Anchor. If you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. Let me explain. Number one, it is free. That means no monthly subscriptions, no hidden fees. It is free 99. There's creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. So you don't have to buy all this equipment that I decided to buy. You can do it right from your phone or computer. And Anchor will distribute your podcast for you. So it's so easy for me to upload an episode and it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many, many more. And you can actually make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. It's everything you need to make a podcast in one place. Download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started, and let's get into the show. And we are back, you guys. Like I said, I didn't want to tell you guys the name of my guest. I just wanted to bring her on because she is someone who is very, very special to me, someone who I am super close with, to the fact that I uprooted my whole life to be here in the Queen City of Ohio so I can be close to her. This is someone who I've known my whole life, all 33 years of it, and someone who I value and love very, very, very dearly. My special guest today is my good big sister, Lanae Billings Parker.
Well, thank you so much for having me, sis. I love your show and I love you.
I love you too, Pumpkin. So I'm excited for you to be here because, again, this is something that we definitely have talked about from the day that I started this podcast. And I think it's important to have the perspective of a parent of a child who is in the system or who has been in the system, because he's about to get out. And we're super excited about that. And he's going to stay out because we are going to make sure of that. And so I'm really just excited for you to be here. And this is really kind of part one. Part two is when he gets out. I've talked to him before, and just talking about the things that he's been through, the things that he's seen. And I was talking to him the other day and he was telling me just all the bullshit that happens while he's in prison, and it was just infuriating to me. I'm sure obviously you talk to him every day, so you already know how it goes. So I'm really excited. But for those guys who don't know, my nephew is currently finishing up his sentence in prison. He was in prison for about 1.5 years. He's been in and out of jail since he was 22. He's currently, or about to be, 27. But he, talking to him now and talking to him back then, he's completely changed and changed his mindset, because we all know how this system is set up. The system is set up for you to stay in it. If you don't have the right tools and right people around you. And so that's why it's really important for us to have this conversation, because I know there might be some parents out there who also, have children who are in prison and maybe feeling the same way and maybe feeling guilty, or they don't really know. And so my question to you, sis, my first question, shall I say, is, obviously, like you said, Romy's been in and out of jail since he was 22. And there's some people who are listening who are parents who may have kids who may, be constantly getting in trouble and things like that. And people are like, oh, well, they're constantly getting in trouble. So, of course, that's the route they're going to go. Right. But they're in a good situation. They're in a good environment, which I know that you gave him. So what does that look like for you? What is the grief behind that as a parent who had a child? You gave them the good, but he's, still getting in trouble, we'll say, from a young age.
As a parent, as a mother, it's heartbreaking and it's frustrating. Romy is my firstborn. So, of course, when you're new to parenthood, there are a lot of things you learn on the fly. And when Romy started getting into or having the behavior problems in school, I was constantly back and forth at his school and trying to come up with a good behavior plan and an education plan that would benefit him. And the crazy thing about it is his teachers were really surprised. I guess they were expecting me to kind of be the opposite, really didn't care. Oh, he's in school with you guys, so he's out of my hair for those 6-7 hours. But once I would meet a lot of his teachers, they were like, okay, we need to help this child, get it together. We don't want to see him fail. Uh, so to bring us to now, there are times that I have sat back and wondered, could I have done more? Just remembering when I would strategically pick different neighborhoods for us to live in because I did not want us to live in a predominantly, African American neighborhood. I just didn't, because I wanted to give Romy, along with his brother, he had a younger brother at the time, just being able to play with other kids and come up with other kids that didn't always look exactly like them. And just kind of have a cultural background and the racial background of other races around and other, backgrounds. So I, it's frustrating when you work hard to keep your children out of specific neighborhoods here in Cincinnati and things still go awry. And when you say things go awry, you send your kids to school, and Romy went to a public school. So you don't have any control over the other children that are attending the school with your child. You simply don't. With Romy, I noticed maybe about the age of 14 and 15, probably right when he started high school, that's when things just really just took a turn for the worse. I think it was him jumping in a new era of his life, um, experiencing things that he hadn't experienced in elementary and junior high school. And I think it was just all new for him. And I guess he, like any other teenager, you just simply want to fit in. And sometimes when you simply want to fit in, who you want to fit in with might not be the ideal person you should try to fit in with. And again, like I said, you have no control over that. As much as I would sit and talk to Romy, as much as everyone would talk to Romy, Romy, again, as I said, is my firstborn, but he was everybody's firstborn. I mean, everyone talked to Romy, especially when I would get on the phone with Dad. Dad would, listen, boy, your mom didn't raise you in the hood. Your mom, you're not street like that. And he would try to preach that to Romy, and Romy would sit there and listen to the conversation, to what his G daddy is telling him, but he would get off that phone and walk out the door and it'd be something totally different.
Right.
So to fast forward to now, having to watch him go in and out of jail since the age of 22, and then in October of 2018, when he got caught while on probation with a gun, which he wasn't supposed to have. And I knew then, I said, this is it. He's getting ready to go to prison. I didn't want it to happen, but I knew, because all this time he had dodged going to prison, but I knew this was getting ready to take him to prison. And he did. He first, because of the fact that he was caught in another state with the gun and on probation, and had not he didn't go see his probation officer, so there was a warrant for his arrest. So that evening, when I received the phone call from his girlfriend, it was, I went into panic mode. I went into panic mode because he was arrested in Kentucky. Kenton County, just right across the river here from Cincinnati. We see everything that's going on the news, and my thought had been, oh my God, he's got a gun. I hope they don't hurt my child. I hope they don't kill my child. I had to tell my son prior to this arrest, please. We knew at that point that, you know, he had this warrant out. Even Dad, when he visited here back in August, and Dad said, grandson, I need you to, you know, you can't be in and out of people's cars. You need to lay low until you're ready to turn yourself in.
Mm-hmm.
And we tried to tell him that. And unfortunately, he got arrested by being a passenger in a car with someone who was speeding. So that's basically how it came to an end for him. But I just remember jumping in my car and trying to race over to the area where he was arrested at for fear of, okay, Romy, please remember everything that I told you. And it was a long, long night because, of course, when I got there, they were already gone. I drove back home. I sat in my living room. I told myself I'm not going to sleep until I hear my son's voice. I got on the internet a few times, checked Kenton County Jail, was checking to see had he been processed, because at least I can say, okay, he has gone through the process. My son should still be alive and breathing.
Right.
I knew he was going to get his first call, his one phone call, and he did. And it was probably about almost 1 o'clock in the morning. And it was my son. I was relieved to hear his voice. But when we hung up, I cried. I cried because you don't want that life for your child. You know, you never want to see your child like that. And I knew as I was getting ready to lay in my comfortable bed, my son would not be laying in a bed, a comfortable bed.
Right.
So it's hard. It's very hard. I know there's other parents that have gone through this. It's just not easy.
Yeah.
And to know that I knew once he did serve his time in Kentucky, there was still the probation violation that he still had to go to court for Hamilton County in Ohio.
Right.
So literally, when he got sentenced for the gun charge in Kentucky, they told him he was looking at 3 to 5 years. But with Kentucky, they're different than Ohio, where if it's your first time being charged in that state, you have it where you can serve a portion of that sentence. So you don't truly serve out the full 3 to 5 years. So actually with him, he only had to serve 8 months. 8 months in Kenton County in Kentucky. And then he was later transferred to Grant County, which is about a little over an hour away from here. I didn't get an opportunity to go visit him, but we would have video visits from my cell phone. And of course, I would write him.
Yeah.
The months, 8 months seemed like it was 8 years.
Because you were you able to talk to him during the 8 months or no?
I was able to talk to him. Like I said, our visits would be with me using my cell phone. It would be like a video visit.
Got it. Okay.
Literally.
Yeah.
And we would talk probably every other day at that point, because we had to figure out what the next step was going to be once he left Kentucky, as far as his now the probation violation and the warrant that he had on him. And so we knew he had to still face that music.
Right.
And because of it was a probation violation, he had 2 to 3 years on the shelf that he had to do if he was, violated that. So I'm like, oh my God, I'm not going to see my son probably for another 3 to 4 years, or he's not going to be out for that long. And once he served the term in Kentucky, he was immediately transferred over to Hamilton County. Like they paroled him in Kentucky, but since he still had the case in Hamilton County, he didn't even get to step foot outside. They literally transferred him over to Hamilton County. So once that happened, I would say, that might have been September of, that might have been September of 2019, maybe September, October 2019, when he finally made it to Hamilton County. He had his day in court, had to go in front of the judge that had already sentenced him previously, and basically told him, like, listen, if you're back in here, you're going to do that time that you still have on the shelf. And it just so happened that he got a public defender. He ended up with a lawyer because the public defender could not take his case. So he actually lucked out and ended up with a defense lawyer. And that day when I showed up at court, the lawyer basically told me, like, listen, he said, I want you to know that, he said, how old is your son? I said, he's 25. He said, you will not see him for his 26th birthday, but you'll probably see him for his 27th birthday. I said, okay. And I had to say, all right, this is our fate right now. And basically, Romy was sentenced to 2 years, 18 months. And he spent maybe a little bit more time in Hamilton County than he was sent up the way to prison. And for me, I was so scared because now he's truly away from home. Now he's truly in the prison system. He actually has a number now, and just didn't know what to expect. A lot of times when Romy would call me, he would say, Mom, he would talk about the food, or he would talk about the COs that, would try him or try to intimidate him, and to try to really just keep his mind positive, keep his mind full of just positivity. Don't allow them to get to you. Romy, this is it. Once you're done, we're going on a different path. So let's go ahead and do this time. Don't let the time do you. I had to constantly tell him that.
Yeah.
So with me understanding that I was probably the only voice that would help him get through his time, when he first went away, Romy and I talked every day. Every day. I mean, I didn't miss his call, because I knew for his sanity, he has to hear my voice. He has to be able to do another day. Get any day that he can do, that's one less day he has to worry about at that point. That's one day that's put behind his time, and he can still look forward.
Yeah. Let's talk. Wait, real quick, sis. I want to kind of dive into that a little bit. When you talk about, kind of being that person for him, right?
Mm-hmm.
Being his sanity. But I want to dive into how that weighed on your mental health or your sanity,
Mm,
right? Having to be the
mm,
positive person for him every day, knowing, like you said, the fear of, and I want to go back to that eventually. We'll talk about that, but just the fear of, having this black man going into the system, number one.
mm-hmm.
But just having that fear, and like you said, him being far away from home. I guess it's a twofold question. How did it weigh on your mental health? And how did you make sure that your mental health was strong, trying to be strong for him?
Good question. Uh, it weighed a great deal on my mental health.
Yeah.
So great that I did go seek out therapy during the beginning of that time.
Yeah, good.
Partly because, again, there's that guilt as his mother. What could I have done differently? That always weighed on me. And so I remember after a first couple therapy sessions, and the therapist said to me, I don't want you to be guilty about his situation. I want you to try to uh, be his strength.
Mm.
Because as far as the guilt, it's not going to get you anywhere. And it sounds like you have plagued yourself as the person to be in his corner throughout this whole process. So for you, we got to get you in a better headspace. So instead of looking at it as my son is in prison, it was more so, okay, my son is away, and whatever I need to do to help him get through the day in a positive way, I'll do that. There would be times that, a couple times, I sang on the phone, or we would talk about old times, or we would talk about TV shows, and then there was TV shows that he started watching there. So I would watch them just so we can have something to talk about and take his mind off of what was going on there.
Mm.
Um, I also, along with therapy, I did struggle with anxiety because of panicking about the fact that he was there in prison. Like I said, I dealt with him being in and out of jail. Most of the times I can see him when he was in and out of jail. When he was in Hamilton County, I can go visit him, literally. So once he was sent away to prison, that changed. And then we had COVID.
Yeah, that was, I was about to ask, like, so let's talk about that.
then COVID happened, right when I've had completed the paperwork to be on his, to be approved for visitations there at the prison in Chillicothe, Ohio, and COVID happened. So when COVID happened, I could not go visit my son in prison. And here comes another anxiety. Here comes the panic again. So with that, there was the therapy once again. And I think with the therapist, I would go for comfort, but a lot of times the therapist would say to me, you already know what you need to do. You'll sit here and you'll say what the situation is, and the therapist will ask me a question like, well, what are you going to do how are you going to handle it? Or what do you think you need to do differently? And I can always regurgitate what I knew I needed to do differently. So when COVID hit, luckily, Chillicothe also had the capability to where you can do the video visits.
Yeah.
So we continued to do video visits. Then he told me about an app that I had to put on my phone. This app also allowed me to send him emails, send him messages.
Good.
This app also allowed me to send him pictures. This app also allowed me to send him videograms.
Okay.
So
child technology done changed, honey.
It has changed. So for Romy, he still got he always got a chance to see me, his mom. I got an opportunity to always see my son. And then it just got to a point to where while he was incarcerated, he was earning his good days because he was doing things that were in a positive light as an inmate. Mm-hmm. So after so many days of good days, he would get so much taken off of his actual sentence or his release date. His actually release date was, I want to say, the end of September. And because of the fact that he had all these good days, he put himself at, he was eligible at that point now to go into the transition housing. Yeah. So then once he got into the transition housing, it's like, oh, now you had so many good days that you will be out of the transition housing in mid-August. So he worked it from the end of September and brought it all the way back to mid-August. That was really good.
So I'm sure that gave you took a little bit of anxiety off of, or maybe stress off of your plate a little bit, you think?
It did. Yeah. It did, because in my mind, listen, I know my son, you know, I got it honest, his dad got it honest, his granddad got it honest, that quick temper. Mm-hmm. And my son don't take no shit, period. He just doesn't.
He really does not.
So we would always worry about that. But each time that I would talk to him, he was just like a different person. Like, it was, I would say to him, son, you pick and choose your battles. Every battle, you don't have to fight every battle.
That's right.
You know, the closer you get to the end, the more people going to try you. The more that devil going to be present and try to poke you. Mm-hmm. Just ignore it and keep going.
That's right.
Right before he got to, right before he left for the transition housing, Romy did end up in a hole. And I didn't know that he was in a hole. And the only way that I knew that he was in a hole, we always, once time went on, I would tell Romy, call me every other day. And then once that went on, it was, okay, Romy, just call me on the weekends, because a lot of times I'm working Monday through Friday and I'm busy.
Right.
So if he called, sometimes I really couldn't talk to him.
Yeah.
But he knew this. So there was a time, like I said, this was probably maybe 3 or 4 weeks prior to him going to the transition housing. And, you know, I talked to Romy that Sunday, and it's like, okay, call me Friday evening. I'll talk to you. Have a good week. I love you. I'll see you later. He said the same. Friday evening came. I didn't hear from my son. I said, okay, well, maybe he decided to talk to one of his little female friends, and he'll call me on Saturday. You know, I didn't take anything away from me.
Call
you know,
joint.
So, in which he did. So he kept his little female friends.
Lord, child.
So Saturday came and went. No phone call from Romy. I said, okay. I said, if I get past Sunday, I'm calling up there Monday.
No, that's right.
I got past Sunday, didn't hear from Romy. I called up there Monday morning.
I know you did, 8 a.m. Hello.
So I went on and asked them, hey, can you transfer me to his social worker? I haven't heard from my son. Are you guys having phone problems? Because I know sometimes the technology on their end, it would be issues.
That's fair.
And the guy actually who I spoke with had me thinking, like, he said, yeah, I know they were there working on the phone, so that could be why you haven't heard from him. I said, okay, fine. I said, I'll give it a day or two. If I still haven't heard back, I'll call back. So gave it a couple more days. I didn't hear from my son. So I called back. I said, okay, can you get me to his caseworker? And when I got to the caseworker had informed me that my son was in the hole. And I said, well, what is he in the hole for? He said, I can't tell you. I said, okay. I said, well, how long has he been in the hole? And I think at that point, he had already been there maybe 10 days.
Oh, good. I'm sorry. What?
Yeah. And I said, okay, well, can you tell me when he's getting out of the hole? And the guy was really short. He was like, listen, I'm not his caseworker's not here. And I can only just tell you what I can tell you. I said, well, is this gonna hurt his chances of still going to the transition housing? Mm-hmm. He said, I can't answer that either. I said, okay, I'll call back. I said, give me the name of the caseworker. He gave me the name of the caseworker. I called back the next day and was lucky enough to get a hold of that caseworker. And basically he got put in the hole for, it was really something stupid. One of the CEOs, again, there was a CEO that really just, I mean, maybe he was jealous of my son. I don't know. Sometimes the CEOs walk around there, they feel like I'm a CEO, I'm over you, I'm power over you. You hear about those stories. Mm-hmm. And so basically, my son, as most of his time spent there, he worked out a lot. And it got to a point where he worked out 6 days a week. Mm-hmm. And so my son got really big and buff. Mm-hmm. And whoever the CEO was, didn't like the fact that when COVID hit, they really couldn't go to the gym. So some of the inmates would go like into the bathroom and they had like their homemade workout area. Right. They weren't allowed to do it. So apparently the CO found out that my son was doing that, working out in the bathroom or whatever. And basically said to him in a probably, I'm going to say in a condescending way, because I know my son, he wouldn't have got upset unless that CO really said something in a way to him that rubbed him the wrong way. Mm-hmm. But he was just basically like, Mom, that he was just out of order, and told me that I'm lucky that I'm in here. And so he's like, well, maybe you're lucky that I'm in here, because if I caught you on the outside, it'd be something totally different. Oh, totally Lord. Different. Oh, Lord. And they kind of had exchange of the words. Oh, the CO went and told. The little ticket was wrote up on them. They stuck him in the hole.
For talking back?
So, for talking back.
10 days for talking back.
But Girl. Talking back, and I guess in so many ways, threatening the CO. But all Romy told him was, you're lucky that I'm in here too. Because if we were out on the street, then I F you up. Yeah. So. Yeah,
but for 10, I don't even know how long he was in there, but at least 10 days, that's silly. That's silly.
Yeah. But needless to say, when my son got out, he was like, Mom, I said, I know. He was like, how you know? He was like, you called it. Yeah, I called. I didn't hear from you. I'm like, okay, what they doing do I got to drive up to Chili Coffee? Okay. Because you hear, these are the other things you hear stories about still what goes on with inmates when they are incarcerated. Right. So you hear about those stories, you see what happened on the news, and you fear for the worst sometimes. So But needless to say, he was fine,
Right.
and it did not hinder that that whole transaction with him and that CEO. It did not hinder him from being able to still go to the transition housing.
Yeah, because he's there
So
right now and he's actually doing
he's
really
there
well.
now.
He said he's about to be
Uh-huh.
working soon, so he's doing really, really well, actually.
Yeah, yeah. So and with the transition housing, he wears regular clothes. He has a cell phone. He's taking classes that are helping him with thinking in situations. They call it, I think, corrective thinking classes. So, and I've even asked him, like, hey, do you think these classes are really helping you? He said, actually, I do enjoy them. So, he was like, he did share with me that there was one in one of the sessions, the question occurred or was asked to him, what would you do? Is there something that would make you leave this transition house, um, and, you know, without approval? And he said, my mom. And I said, Romy, I don't ever want you to compromise. You're just right around the corner. You're almost there. Don't compromise that. I said, I'm gonna always be okay. Never don't compromise that. You're almost there.
Yeah.
So I said, I'm telling you now, I'm gonna be okay. I'm gonna see you out. You don't have anything to worry about. I don't even want you thinking like that. Just go ahead and finish this time so we can get out and live life.
And I kind of want to talk
you
about that a little bit, sis, is those conversations that you had with Romy when he was in there. I know now, like you said, obviously they're a little different, but even the fact of him saying, like, listen, like if my mom, like my mama, like, yeah, that's no, ain't my mama. It is what it is. But how were those conversations, or how were the feelings that you had with those conversations with Romy when he was in there? You know, I don't know what type of conversations, if he was trying to stay strong or if he was being vulnerable, but what were those conversations like for you listening to your son when he's in there?
There were most days, Romy, his mental was fine. But there would be days, like one in particular, I had sent where I was able to order him some things, and he's decided that he wants to, study of being a Muslim.
Right.
And there was the necklace that I ordered for him, you know, based off the Muslim religion. And he got everything except for that necklace. And he thought someone stole it. And so I had to call up to the prison. I had to, hey, my son got all the clothing, the shoes, the prayer rug, but he didn't get the necklace. What happened? So later found out the necklace actually was broken when it came, so they sent it back, and I ended up being refunded. But the delay of knowing all that takes like forever. But he thought somebody stole it and was ready to go on a rampage, and it's like, no, Romy, don't do it. Another time was when he would get, I want to say every other week, he would go and get his personal hygiene things, get whatever he needed, food, snacks, or whatever, from the money on his books. And he gets his bag, or the bags are put out like in a common area, and the inmates are to go pick up their bag. They see their name, their inmate number, they grab their bag, they know it's their bag. Well, someone had took Romy's bag.
Oh, Lord.
And he called me. He said, Mom, I'm about to go in the hole because somebody stole my bag. And that's like stealing from my mama because you send me the money. So I'm just letting you know, if I catch the person with my stuff, I'm kicking his ass. So I had to quickly talk him off that ledge. Listen, son, listen. If they took it, then they needed it more than you. We ain't gonna worry about that. He was like, Mom, they took my stuff. And that's like stealing from you because you're sending me the money so I can get this stuff. I said, Romy, I need you not to worry about that. I need you not to worry about that. I need you not to worry about it. I said, but if you see the guy, please do not do anything to him. Just don't do it. It's not worth it. It's not worth it. He was like, Mom, but it's just the principle. I said, I get it, son, but it's not worth it. Needless to say, we get off the phone. The guy came up. I guess he made such a fuss in the quarter that the guy, oh, I grabbed your bag by accident. And Romy said he knew it went by accident. He said, so when the guy gave Romy back his stuff, Romy said, man, let me just let you know here. Anything I get is because my mom has sent me the money to get it. And when this bag disappeared and I don't get it, that's like somebody stealing from my mom. So just try to make sure that your name is on the bag before you pick up the bag. Because if you pick up mine again and we're having this conversation, I'm not gonna talk to you anymore. I'm just gonna lay you out. So needless to say, he kept his hands to himself. He like I said, with him, a lot of the conversations were, listen, pick your battles. You can't fight every battle. Everything doesn't require you to always respond. Sometimes just walk away. I said, walking away doesn't show that you're weak. Walking away shows that you're strong because you have the restraint not to go there. You're choosing not to jeopardize whatever it is that you got going on right now. You're not going to jeopardize it. It's not worth it. I would say, and like I said, in that long stretch, he had a lot of incidents where he had to really just talk himself off that ledge or talk to me. You know, if he got too angry, that's where he would call me. And if it would be at a time that I'm at work, I'll look down at that phone, something wrong. And I'll answer the phone. What's wrong, son? It's usually what I'll say. What's wrong, son? Mom, I just need to hear your voice. I just need you to talk to me. Da 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 da. And we're good. We're good. Once I say what I say, he hears my voice. We're gonna leave that alone, son. He's good after that. So in most days it was funny because there were a couple times he was actually giving me advice and telling me not to, go off and calm down and things of that nature. So to say the least, that having him do this time that he has been doing, I think he's learned a lot. I think he's learned a lot of how to handle conflict. We've even talked about, hey, Romy, I know you're the type of person, you're loyal to your friends. Someone get into a beef or whatever and they call you, you feel like you got to go. I need you not to do that.
Right.
I need you not to even surround yourself with an individual that will put you in that situation.
Right.
I said, because if a person puts you in that situation, son, they're not your friend.
Correct.
They're not your friend. So I need you to understand, I know you're loyal, but be loyal to yourself. It's time to be loyal to yourself.
No, I think you've been saying some things here, sis. I think we kind of touched on, that guilt, like you said, feeling like you didn't do enough, with your child growing up, even though that you did. And, just the process of watching him go to jail and go to prison. And like you said, being in the courtroom and just having to come to terms of like, okay, well, I'm not going to see him for his 26th birthday, but I'm going to see him for his 27th. Yeah. Like, okay. So I want to just end it on this, sis, for anyone who is listening, who may be going through the same thing or may, have a child who they feel like is on that path. What advice do you have for them? So I think it may be two different, and it may be the same, but it may be two different kind of lanes of advice for that person who may see their child going down that path, like you said, kind of in and out of jail. What advice do you give to them on that journey? And for the person whose child is in jail, what advice do you give to them on that journey? And again, it may be the same thing or it can be different.
No, I think those are two different questions. If you have a child that you see is going down a path where they're, getting in trouble a lot, you definitely want to surround them with positive people of influence, because it definitely takes a village to raise a child. I mean, and don't give up, and don't beat yourself up. It seems like that is the one thing you want to do, but don't do it. Make sure you give them the love and support still, but reach out to support groups. Reach out to maybe looking for a mentor, for your child. But there's so many groups and so many resources out there. Definitely look to those and help you with your child. To the parent that has to watch or who has a child that is in jail or in prison, be there for them. Mm-hmm. Be there for them. Be there for them. Because this is what you got to remember. What we look out and see with our own two eyes is not what they see with their own two eyes. It's a totally different scene. And a lot of times you're going to be the voice of reason. A lot of times it's going to be they need to maybe talk to you every day. So if you have that resource where you can allow them to talk to you every day, do that. Just be there. Just be there. And the more you talk to them, the better you feel, because it's also the relief of, okay, my child is okay. I've heard his voice. I've heard her voice. She's good. I'm good. Look at it like that.
Oh, that's good, sis. That's really good. Just be there for them. So if you're listening and you're a parent, just be there. And I know it could be hard, like you said, especially if you have a child who, kind of is in trouble and constantly in that. And then they get into the system and you may be like mad. I'm sure you may have been mad at him at one point of like, sir, you know what I mean? And, but, even to that parent. So, okay, this is for real. My last question. So even to that parent who may be like, so I don't want to even say mad, maybe like disappointed in their child, again, because they have done all these things and given them this life that they may not have had. What do you say to that parent who may be disappointed in their child and wants to be there, but really is struggling with doing that because of that feeling that they're having?
There was a time that I went through that myself. The disappointment. And even at one point told myself, I'm done. And I'll never forget, this situation was when he was in jail in Hamilton County. And while he was there, he was part of a program there with a police officer. And the police officer worked with a number of probably maybe 10 to 15 male inmates, and basically teaching them just different routes of what to do outside of the prison or the jail house. Do things positive, see things positive. So this particular police officer, he and I, he got in contact with me. He and I would talk about my son, or he would give me updates or how the things would go with Romy on that particular, and it was one particular day that Romy kind of got upset with him and actually said he was going to leave the program and left and walked out of the session. But Romy came back. And when Romy came back, Romy was crying. And he told him that he didn't want to leave the session. So he took a special interest in Romy. So when Romy got out of jail, that same officer brought him up to my job so I could see him, literally, from the jailhouse, and brought him up to my job. And we talked maybe like a month or so after Romy getting out, him doing everything he was supposed to do. He was back slacking into the wrong crowd, the wrong things. And I remember being on the phone with Romy, and we were talking about jobs, and I was trying desperately to get him to a job at the hospital. And basically, he had the job. He came in for the interview. The interview went well. Well, for whatever reason, Romy had missed the manager called back to extend an offer and didn't get the message until 2 weeks later.
Oh my gosh.
And I said to Romy, I said, Romy, okay, this is where I work at. And I told you, if we go through with this, I need you to be on point and on board, period. If you feel like you can't, then let me know and we won't start this process. And he made a statement to me about, that's why I didn't want nobody to try to help me do something or help me find a job, because if something goes wrong, I don't want to hear it. Sis, I sat there on that phone. My eyes got the fluttering. I said, let me tell you something. You ain't got to worry about me giving you, to let you know where you can go, or as far as a job and helping you with that situation. You got it. I'm done with it. I said, so let me get back to work and you get back to living your life. And we disconnected that call. And I was serious. I had called that officer and he said, he said, your son may end up back in jail. You need to walk away from that situation or he's going to drain you emotionally and mentally. I'll never forget that. I'm standing on the phone crying because I'm so angry and I'm so upset. How could he do this? I'm trying to get you a job. This is at my place of work, and you just, oh, well, you don't take it serious? Needless to say, after a few days, Romy called and he apologized. And I told him then, I said, son, I said, maybe one day you'll be blessed to understand this. I said, I'm going to always be there for you. Always. I said, but you can't shit on me. If I do anything to help you, that's going to be the betterment of you. And if you feel like it's not the right thing for you, just have the conversation with me and let me know. But don't take me through the ride and it's something that you're not really taking serious and then have me looking with egg on my face. I said, please don't do that ever again. Well, of course it happened because he ended up going to jail and having the whole prison term. So I had to pray in that process of, okay, my son needs me. My son needs me. And with the death of family members, the death of our dad, I struggle with that. I struggle with telling him. So understanding that he's lost so much while he's been gone has made me feel like, okay, you definitely got to be there. You definitely got to be there.
Mm-hmm.
So, like I said, we're praying that this is the last time. So I don't have to look at him and say, oh, I'm done with you, or no, I don't ever want to feel like that. And I don't ever want to say that to him, to any of my kids.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Well, sis, this was great.
It was.
Thank
you
good.
For having me.
Yeah, no, thanks for being open and vulnerable about it. I know I don't really, talk to my friends about it like that, because, what conversation are we having? But I think that it's a real life conversation that needs to be had. And there's people out there who are going through the same thing, whose children are in jail, and they're like, but maybe your perspective of just being there and like, having the feelings that you're having, going to therapy, dealing with the things, hopefully gives them a little bit of peace to say, well, I'm not alone, number one, and number two, okay, like me being there for them can mean so much more for them. So I just appreciate you, sis, for being here. This is a great conversation. And
thanks for having me, dear.
Of course, I'm gonna slide into this wrap up real quick, but thanks, boo. Love you.
I love you more.
I just love my sister. I really do. So I really hope you guys enjoyed that conversation. Just allowing her to, and I told her, I said, I think that was really kind of therapeutic for you. And I feel like you had a lot of things that you wanted to get off your chest and to talk about. And she said, yeah, I did. And it was indeed therapeutic. And so I hope that if anyone is listening and has a child and, you are having to go through your child being in prison, I hope that Lanae was able to just give you some insight, on what that looks like. Or even if you don't have a child who is in prison, or if you have children and you think about like maybe going through that, I hope that she gave you a little bit of peace to know that you're not alone. Right. And to just give you some insight into her mind, or a parent's mind who does have a child in prison. So maybe there's maybe a different level of compassion or a different level of empathy, right? Because I feel like, people hear about like, oh, your child's going to prison, and they may look at you a certain type of way, or they may look at you like, oh, well, you didn't raise him in the right household or whatever. And like she said, I put him in these environments to try and show him a different way of life, to give him better than I had. And he still, just ended up on this path. And I love my nephew. I really do. I talked to him, like I said, the other day, and we had a really long conversation. And I do think that he does have a different mentality, and he has changed. And I think, the loss of my dad, his G daddy, really impacted him in a way, because he wasn't able to be there. Right. And like she said, like, the other losses that she had in her family, and he wasn't able to be there. And so I think he does have a different mindset, and this time is going to be like completely different. And, we had a long conversation. I'm like, listen, nephew, like when you get out, I can put you in good situations, but I need you to like be in the mindset and to stay away from those situations that can put you back into that situation. Right. And so, just giving people a little more empathy and a little bit more compassion when it comes to someone going through that situation, and not be so quick to judge. Right. And understand what they're going through, and really be able to support them in the way that they need support. Because, you don't know, like, what do you say? Like, okay, your son is in prison. You may immediately, your first right of mind, and, you can act like you don't have that judgy thing. We all have that moment of like, oh, your son's in jail. What do you do? Or your daughter's in jail. What does she do? Oh, well, oh, it ain't no way, because, I raised my children like this, right? Like, we all have that in this, but I hope that this conversation helps make you stop, take a breath, think about it, and say, you know what, like, how can I support this person? They they're probably struggling. They may have anxiety. They may, be worried about their child being in prison, and to really stop and just, I don't know. I get, like I said, just really just be more compassionate and have a little more empathy, and figure out ways that you can help instead of be a hindrance. And so, Like I said, I really, really hope that conversation helped. I really just kind of wanted her to talk about it and to share her perspective. And like I said, give space and time and light to that particular side of it, because we always talk about the other side, but we really don't discuss it with the parents who are going through. And so if you are a parent who is going through, or even if you know a parent who is going through and you're looking for ways to support them and you're like, okay, like, like, I don't know. Or if you're a parent who is struggling, as you're going through the process, you already know what I'm about to say. As I always say, be kind to yourself and give yourself grace, because if you don't, who will? Thank you so much, guys, for listening to another week's episode. If you haven't already, follow me on social media at This Too Shall Suck Podcast on Facebook and Instagram. If you are listening on Apple Podcasts, don't forget to rate, review, follow, and share with your family and friends. If you want to know more about me, Miss Loryn Denise, check out my website at thistooshallsuckpodcast.com, and feel free to send me any questions or topics you want to hear, or let me know if this helped you, to be able to be a little more empathetic and understand and to support, your situation that you're going through. So email me at hello@thistooshallsuckpodcast.com. This episode and every episode was produced by Mike Sick, and our original music is produced by Jimmy Samaj. As always, I love you guys. I'm sending you love and light in your life because you deserve it. I'll see you on the next episode. Mwah.